June 26, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the NinjaTrader platform, the 2000 tick chart. You don't have to listen or watch this entire thing. You can just go down to the descriptions below and you can see where I thought I saw setups as well as where I took my trades. I just want to point out that today was kind of a big trading range. This is the pre-market highs and pre-market lows. For the most part, prices traded within this gigantic range. There was some couple of breakouts, but they failed. They came back in, and toward the very end of the day, probably about the last 15 minutes, it did break out. I did see this gigantic measured leg here and a second measured leg down. Overall, I didn't find too many trades. There were a couple of trades that I missed, and then there was one that I took. So I only took one trade for the day, and I was green. And also, there was, although there was kind of some swings, and there were a lot of choppy price action, I couldn't find good entries. So unfortunately, after 10 o'clock, there were some second entries that set up, but I didn't really like the way they looked, so I skipped most of them. I didn't even mark them. So I'm going to go through the charts right now. There was no economic data that came out to really shake the markets. So it was kind of a, well, kind of a slow, quiet day. We'll get to the trades right now. So this is the pre-market, this gray area. I don't trade the pre-market, but I did see a setup here. And everything here is in Pacific Standard Time. So it's 3 hours behind Eastern Standard Time. I saw this kind of setup here. I saw a new high here. There's a first entry long, second entry long. I marked this second entry long just because, well, I didn't take the trade because I didn't trade the pre-market, but I like this setup. Reason being is this second entry long, although it's congested, this signal bar is terrible, but this trigger bar is kind of cool that it created, it flashed down, it trapped everybody going short, and then it came up and closed just one tick above, and then, it went just one tick above for the highs and closed right where the previous bar had opened. So this is very deceiving. I don't necessarily think this is a trade I would have been, I guess, aware of to take, but it's just very interesting because I also saw a potential trading range here. Now, keep in mind, this is a pre-market, so these candles took, if you were trading this, would take forever to close out to get the 2000 ticks. But it was just something very interesting that showed up here. I just want to mark it for myself. And then actually the first setup comes right at, well, depending on how you traded it or how you look at it, is right at the market open because it's a new high. First entry long, pulls back, second entry long. Now this second entry long, I thought it's kind of created a double top right here. It's a decent signal bar because technically if it broke one tick above, this would have been your signal bar, but since it made a double top, this is your signal bar. Now, it's an inside bar to this, and when I saw this right at the open, I needed a little bit more confirmation that this was going to be like two legs down for sure, one leg here, followed by a second leg, but I wasn't too certain that it was going to keep going bullish, and I drew this candle at the time because this is what you see in real time, and it's hard to trust that this is actually some kind of support here. The resistance up here fit pretty well. 1, 2, 3 touches. So I left this trade alone. And I thought you need a confirmation. So lo and behold, you wait and the confirmation shows up. There's a higher low right here. It forms, it confirms the third touch, but the signal bar isn't the best. Like this is technically your signal bar. This signal bar, believe it or not, is actually engulfing this one. So this bar is actually encapsulating this entire one. So you might have thought first entry short, potential second entry short, and it traps you and goes up. But you don't know that's going to happen at the time. And it is kind of like touching a third time. So you could, I guess at that point, trust it. But I wasn't really sure. I was watching it unfold. And so I just skipped it. Turns out it would have worked. This is what it kept moving up. And then it looks like it's overshooting this channel going up. And now it's coming back in. So I'm expecting prices to come back all the way down to this side and potentially make another overshoot on this side. Comes down. It doesn't. It kind of hits the EMA and flashes back up. So now I'm thinking EMA is a pretty good support because it looks like it's supporting prices and moving prices back up. But prices are having trouble at the pre-market highs. That's very interesting. I'm just wondering if I'm truly within a big trading range all day. And so I'm just watching carefully. It keeps chopping. Comes back into this channel, but now it's two sideways now. It had an overshoot. It made one attempt to go down. It actually went up and made a new high, and now it's actually chopping sideways. So I don't see a good, clean, safe setup. Again, it's having trouble at the top of the pre-market highs. Now it finally breaks out. So not only is it still within this channel now, it's also within this trading range, but it broke out of the trading range because initially I had a trading range a little tighter, closer to this. And then later I expanded it. So I thought this was a failed breakout here. It came back in as kind of potentially another failed breakout. But right now the bias is bullish. So I'm not really looking to short. Prices come back into the trading range or break out to the other side. Chops. It's chopping. And so I see this and I'm thinking potentially this is a wider range. So I actually bring it back down to about right here. I treat this as a potential failed breakout up here, overshoot, comes back down, failed breakout here. Breaks out of this shortened trend channel, tries to make a new low, it fails. And so I did see this as a new low, first entry short, potential second entry short, the second entry short, and it's a failed second entry short. So right on this candle, not only does it make a second entry short, it fails it. So I thought this was actually a possible trade because this is a pretty good signal bar. And on top of that, it failure completed above the EMA, which is a good sign, and there's plenty of room to the top of this range. And so I thought it was probably a pretty good bear trap because here you're thinking it probably broke through here and now it's breaking out through here and made one attempt to go lower. I don't know, you might have thought it made a second attempt to go down lower. So it actually traps everybody going short when it broke below. Because if you had an entry one tick below, it would have came, picked you up, and then gone up, and then most likely stopped you out if you had your stop one tick above. So I thought this was a pretty good trade to have taken. Unfortunately, I didn't take this trade. I just kind of watched it and it had to go, it kind of went by because there's enough room to get to the top, and that's exactly what it did for your quick scalp. Prices continue moving. And I also saw another setup. I saw this because at this point I thought potentially when I saw this double bottom, I actually dragged this guy down to here. I thought there's actually one touch, two touch, a third touch, a triple test. Not only that, there's a new high, a first entry long, and I was watching this and I was thinking there's a potential second entry long triple test, and there's enough room again to the EMA as well as the top of the trading range. It's a pretty good signal bar. Here, it would have picked you up, and then it would have made you a little nervous because you don't know if it's going to come back down to the bottom or break through. Here, it would have went up, and if you kept your exit one tick, just like going for one and a half or 2 points, you would have gotten out right here. Actually, let me just double check. 39.75, 39.95.75. Yeah, if you kept the 2 ticks or 2 points, it's hard to know that you would have gotten out. If you kept it just 1 point, you would have gotten out for sure for a quick scalp. We chopped up, and then this one may have given you another chance, but then this one's flashing down, so now it would make you pretty nervous. It's also first entry short. And this very likely would have stopped you out here because it's actually one tick below this double bottom. So unless you kept your stop below the lowest low, which would be right here, you probably would have gotten stopped out here. And prices continue chopping down. Oh, another channel here. I don't see any good setups. It has a small breakout here. It comes out and it kind of resumes the downward trend. EMA is pretty far away, so I don't feel comfortable taking a long or a short. The first entry short, you don't get a second entry short until you get all the way up to here. So by that time, it's too late to try to short the market because you had a new low here, first entry short, second entry short, so far away from the EMA, there's enough room. But right now, it's hard to really know for sure because it already moved all the way back up here. So it's hard for me to trust taking a short here, even though it's a pretty decent signal bar. And this is a breakout of this channel, but it wasn't a very clean overshoot. It's kind of clean over. It was an overshoot that hung outside for a while. So I wasn't really sure if it was going to pull back and then continue making another move higher to touch this end. But even though it never really quite touched it to this side. So it looks like if you did take a short, it would have worked out. Popped around. I see another shortened trend channel facing down. And it goes into this trading range. I see a second entry short here. I see a new low here, first entry short, second entry short. But this is double bottom, so here the second entry short is setting up. I thought second entry short is a pretty decent signal bar. There's barely a body here though, but it formed below the EMA, and there is enough room to the bottom. There's also the break of this channel. So it broke this channel, trying to make a new low, and already completed a new low. Now it made two legs up. So it was a little confusing for me. Like it broke, it made a new low. So downtrend has played out. It also made one big push up, pulled back a second push up, and taking a short here. It would be based upon the belief that it made one big leg, pulls back, and is starting a second leg down to potentially reach the bottom of this range. So I thought it could happen, but I also thought it potentially could be one leg down, kind of pull back, and this pull back correction could still be in play. So I wasn't 100% sure if it might actually move up a little bit more and turn into a fail breakout. So I kind of left it alone. This would have completed the second entry short, and then it would have worked out pretty well. Prices then continued chopping in this trading range that I thought was a trading range. Kind of had the tops here as a resistance and a potential support down here. Flips around, breaks out. It's a failed breakout, but it comes back out. So it's actually a failed breakout pullback. I don't have this line established yet. But here, I'm thinking there is at least a resistance here. And I wasn't sure where the support was. This line here shows up later. But at the time I was playing, this is a potential resistance. Anytime the prices came back up to here, I'd be watching carefully for a potential short. Prices continue moving down. It falls into this trend channel. There's a new high here. Get a first entry long, second entry long. There's no real setup. You can't really take a long here. It's a terrible signal bar. On top of that, you're kind of trending down bearish, but you don't want to take a short either because it is still far away from the EMA. On top of that, it's already making new lows, and it's getting pretty close to the pre-market lows. So it's already tested twice. So when you see this in real time, at least when I saw this in real time like this, I'm hesitant to think of going long or going short. Going short, it could be resistance support here. Going long feels a little bit iffy just because prices seem to have a bearish downtrend. So conflicting ideas make me just sit out. Prices continue chopping left and right. Not left and right, but continue chopping. They go back up. They look like they're trying to make it back into this gray trading range formed by the pre-market lows and highs. You do have a new low here. You have first entry short, second entry short right here, but it's a terrible signal bar. You have first entry long, but that's all you have, so there's no real setup. There are like second entries in here, but they don't set up clean. Comes down here. I think there is a channel here, but it doesn't really help for a trade. And I do finally see this. I saw a new low here. It's a first entry short. I saw this. I thought this is potentially a second entry short. Well, it's not potentially. It is technically a second entry short. Made one leg up, push down, second leg up, push down. I'm thinking, okay, it formed above the EMA. It seems like prices have kind of bottomed on this bottom of this larger trading range, this gray trading range. So I saw a measured move one leg down, pulls back a second, made one attempt to go down, came up, made a second attempt. And here, this could be seen as a higher low on a bigger time frame. So when I saw this, there was a little bit of hesitation. I saw, okay, there's a first entry short, second entry short for sure. But I'm thinking makes one leg up. And at the time, I actually had something that looked like this, one leg up here. And the second measure move would be about right here. So I'm thinking, was it going to come up to here and hit this potential midline? And actually, let me just clear this up. But I took this trade because I saw it was bottoming. It's probably going back into the larger trading range. It looked like it trapped some shorts because if you look at this, this engulfed this entire candle. So what happened was, if you think you're going to go short, right when it opens, it chops around, it fills you, and it came back up higher than it actually closed lower. So I'm thinking this is a failed second entry short. And I take my trade one tick above. So what actually happened is I waited for this candle to form and break above this red one. And so when it broke above the red one, it actually went to the highs. I was chopping around for a bit. I dropped my limit order right here, hoping to get picked up. Came in, it picked me up, and then the next trade, it let me get out. So that was kind of a quick trade. I will admit it might be a little risky, but I just wanted to wait for confirmation on this candle. So I actually didn't drop it in at the close of this guy. I waited for this guy to form and set up, and then I dropped it right here, and then I was able to get out. Turns out, and I kept my stop one tick below this red one, so it was actually right here. I was okay, and let's see, right here, it likely would have stopped me out if I held in too long. But here, this is already going to go for, let's see, it's 43.78, and there's at least probably about 2.5, 3 points there. and I didn't want to push my luck on anything, so I always just kept it about 1 point because I'm still learning. The prices continue chopping, moves up, it moves in this big choppy trading range. This one, this blue one here. I'm just sitting on my hands. There's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but it's a terrible signal bar. Prices continue moving. I don't see any good setups at this point because it just looks very choppy, very congested. Even though they are trending down and trending up, there was no clean entries that I could find. Prices move up. There's a double top here. This is super congested because I did see this potential new high, first entry long, second entry long, but this isn't a good signal bar. Plus all these candles, there's just too much indecision right here, too congested. It just kept prices kept going. Right now, it looks like the EMA is holding, but in the grand scheme of things, the EMA kind of is trending bearish down, and it is kind of moving sideways. The price is moving above and below, kind of like a roller coaster. It just tells me like it needs to be very. I need to be very careful and not try to jump in on any trades because with my experience level, it's hard for me to fully decipher what exactly is going to happen. So it's better just to wait, just watch it, and watch more of these type of days to get better. Prices continue moving. There was in this trading range that I thought, and it finally breaks out, but it's getting very close to the end of the day, and I don't want to take any trades with it's like 12:48 or Eastern Standard Time is already 3:48, so there's only like 15 minutes left. Yes, there are second entries, but I just kind of left them out, and it kind of goes into the close. So overall, it was kind of a slow day. These two trades actually were pretty good to have taken, but I didn't take it, and the one trade I did take was for a quick scalp. Overall, there was some price action, but it felt a little bit unclear. Nothing fully set up nicely because it wasn't even a super clean trading range day because it did kind of respect the lows, but and the highs, but it was just chopping all over the place. So overall, just my one trade I feel pretty satisfied with. So hopefully that was helpful.